Great. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our PHLAFF 2023 Q&A panel sessions. My name is Kirsten Senske, and I'm the programming manager on the PHLAFF team. So today we'll be learning more about some filmmakers that have their films as a part of the 2023 Philadelphia Latino Film Festival. And I'd like to begin by having them introduce themselves and the work that they're a part of. So whoever wants to go first, feel free to jump in.
Well, I can go first. My name is Jacqueline, but I go by Jax. Sometimes my underground name is Fidel or La Fidel. I am stationed out here in Virginia across from Washington, D.C., but I have roots in the Gulf Coast area of the United States. So I am from Houston originally. I grew up in a lot of other places, but I consider that sort of the space where I became more grounded with who I was going to be as I grew up. My project is called Post Comedy, and it follows a comedian who, in the middle of her set, while she's really at the point where she's feeling that connection with the audience, she experiences a panic attack, and during that moment, you see a flashback, and so she's in the middle of, like, you know, what is supposed to be an ideal situation, where you're comfortable, you feel safe, you're at your top. She just feels out of place, out of sorts, and gets through her set. But I think the film at the end just sort of reveals how she starts to, something clicks, and so she has to reckon with or reconcile, like, should I deal with this trauma, or, you know, will I not deal with it? And so I think that the film, it's called Post Comedy, and there are jokes in it, but I think, and it's shot in black and white, which is not very common nowadays, because of the kind of what the symbolism brings with black and white film. So it's really kind of the director's vision. My cohort, Via, and she brought in a lot of the team. So she brought the musician, the lighting crew, and the DP. And so she has a lot of experience working with these guys. And she and I sort of partnered together to write the script. And a lot of the crew was based in Virginia, a good portion of it, but there were some folks from Los Angeles, New York, so that was really a great experience. So we're very honored to be part of the Latino Film Festival in Philly. I love Philadelphia. I love everything about Philadelphia, so I've been there quite a bit. So I'm very honored that we got this opportunity. So I do hope that this film does speak to some folks, like they get maybe a laugh, a chuckle here, but it is a very brief film. And I think we were just trying to sort of get into the audience and kind of get our, you know, our sentiments through, and then kind of leave with like an open-ended, like, what would you do kind of situation. So that's what's great about the film. It's only 8 minutes. A lot to pack in 8 minutes, yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Catherine, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hello. Thank you for having me here. My name is Catherine Tcherassi. I also go by Cache. I am the director and screenwriter, part producer of the short documentary called Caripuaña. Caripuaña is a fragment of a series of films about water that we are producing at this moment. It's more than water, it's about rivers. And it was filmed in Colombia through the Magdalena River in my city, which is called Barranquilla. And it just really touches upon, like, the situation of the bodies of water of the city, and it's told through the eyes of a couple of outcasts that made their home under a bridge in front of the stream of water called Caño. And it's very colloquial. It's a piece that really, through a very heartwarming and very kind of like naive Ice tells like the story about the situation of the waters in of the Magdalena River.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for being here. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this Q&A with us. So I'd like to jump right into things by asking the first question, and it's a little bit of a loaded one, so I'll paste it in the chat. So I'd just like to know what inspired you to make your film, and what do you think the most challenging part of your filmmaking process was? And whoever would like to answer first can just jump right into it, or you can take some time to think about it too.
Yeah, I can go for it. Well, like I said, what inspired me to take on this film is pretty much that comes in a time of your life when you like question like what's the meaning and purpose of your life and what you're gonna put into it, like to impact actually, you know, the world out there. And that's why I undertook like this series about water, culture's relationship with the water. So it's been a sociological and anthropological and environmental study that calls upon like a reflection about awareness of what is our relationship with water. So in this series, me and my team will be underlook each society that we call the amphibian societies, because we call it amphibian because they spend like half of the time in the water and half of the time in earth. And what's the relationship to it? Like, are they honoring through art or are they destroying it through ambition? So the idea of this, we not only do the films itself that show like the problematic in each location, but we've actually even constructed, you know, a NGO to undertake through social campaigns, impact campaigns, solutions to what's been done, and to bring awareness also through the way that we know it's through art, you know, like expressions and memory. So that's like the inspiring point. And it's also like beautiful to recognize like some of the cultures and the voices that has been shot or has been silenced, like in Caripuaña. These are a couple, like a very unusual couple. Like I say, they're outcasts. Nobody like cares to see them or bother them because, you know, that they live under the bridge. At least that's their home, and they go about in this very intimate relationship. Imagine like where the caño, you know, it's like a tributary of the river that passes through the city, passes through the marketplace, where everybody dumps like all this garbage, non-biodegradable, very pollutant. And it's, I mean, filming there wasn't an easy task because it's a water that's like very polluted and it's a hard environment. But just to see how they made this like place like a home, and that they, even though a lot of people don't mind them, like to understand how knowledgeable they are about the process, about the history, about the actual situation, because they themselves are the ones that are seeing everything that goes down, and sometimes they're hired to go and clean it. So it's very worth, like in my city, when we had like the debut about it, I was surprised of like all the impact that it caused, because this is a place that a lot of people didn't want to go through, but when they saw the film, they were already like touched, and all these memories started coming back. Like many people wrote to me like, oh, I remember when I used to go there with my father and we went fishing. Now that's not even a conceivable idea. And since this film was released right like the day that the quarantine in Colombia like was declared, we're gonna do like the debut of the film, the first preview. And so everything was shot, and we had to find like alternative ways to show it around. And I remember talking to these characters and asking them like, how's everything in the downtown, in the market, because it's a very busy place and now everything's shut down. And they're telling me like, you won't believe me, but you know, like the otters came back, like these birds came back, and it was just like a week after everything was shut down. So it's I mean, it's a time for me, like what inspires me is to get the recognition and the awareness of the water, and to visualize the voices that inhabited.
Wow,
Amazing.
thank you for that.
Truly amazing.
Yeah.
I want to say, Katja, that's a very noble work that you're doing. I'm not a religious person, but I would say it's equivalent to saying you're doing God's work. And I think that I'm getting also a source of inspiration through connection with the natural environment. I think that as Latinos, we lose a little bit of that when we make the sacrifices to find work, go to a big city, move to a different country. I know my mom did that, and I feel like I can't wait to see your film, because I do think we're sort of missing that as well, sort of an appreciation of that, and the need to be reminded that we still need to be caretakers of our environment, whether it's here or in our home where we grew up. So I think that that's very noble work. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you for your words too, and your appreciation.
Thank you. I guess for my project, I do want to say the inspiration just really came from a lot of, I want to say, Latinas culture, and kind of what we bring in strength, and sometimes the struggles we have in our communities with speaking up when we feel things are not right. So I think the inspiration really came from my own upbringing. I came from a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of abuse in my family. A father who was in prison. I mean, in my story, unfortunately, is not really unique. And so I was really inspired once I started realizing that sort of understanding your trauma brings a lot of resilience. And sometimes I was very ashamed of kind of my experience and what I had. I think I wasn't until 20 years old until I sort of realized that who am I trying to be, how much the honesty was going to free me up to be myself more. So I felt like I was kind of always hiding behind, something that wasn't, comfortable, by not bringing up the fact that my childhood was kind of not so great. But I like the character that we bring, and it's from those inspirations. She has a scene where she does, at the very end, she pushes the character who approaches her in the parking lot. And so I feel like some people, my understanding is from some audience feedback that, it was a little hard to process that, why would this woman just get mad and push someone? And I think it's time that we realize that some women are just not going to be idle about stuff or apologetic all the time about everything that happens to them. And so I think, to me, that the character does something that's just. Someone is approaching her in a dark parking lot, and she just believes that she has to protect herself. And I feel there's a source of strength, but the fact that she has trauma, again, she has to decide how she wants to navigate through this world. And I think at the end, she still shows some strength, despite the fact that she's having this this experience of a anxiety attack, if you will. And the challenges, I guess, were delving really into a personal story, because there is a lot of more, it comes from a personal place a lot. And I think a lot of projects do. I think I was still sort of unraveling sort of the things that I went through and how I can communicate that. And because I enjoy doing stand-up, I love writing. I felt that was a good way to sort of balance those two things, because I feel there are a lot of folks in this world who sometimes try to find the humor even when they're not feeling so strong. So I really thought that the most challenging for us was just really getting the story across, but not in a way that is supposed to make anyone feel the same terrible feelings, but just an empathetic understanding that we all go through this. And I think with COVID, there are a lot more projects that do express some of this collective trauma. But I think, now I think more people are more prone to be more honest with everyone about what in the pandemic really scared them and how they reevaluated their priorities. So I think that in a way helped a lot of us grow. And I think my project, we did it before the pandemic, but I feel like it's still going to resonate and have sustainability, because I feel like once we accept that this is something everyone goes through at some journey in their life, that they have a bad experience, and you either have to grow from it. There's going to be some pain along the way. I think that I really appreciate that we were able to communicate that in such a short format, in a narrative format rather than a documentary. I think that the narrative speaks a lot more, allows more playfulness and very small pockets. But yeah, I really did find it to be challenging just to get that story out of me. And then I think at the end, it took us 2 years to really get the script down. So to come back and forth. So it did take quite a while to get there and it fully done. So, but otherwise, I'm very thankful it's out there, and hopefully I'll enjoy some of the feedback folks have at the Philly Film Festival. That would be great.
Thank you guys both for that. It's really interesting to hear, like, even though obviously your films are about like two very different things, like how like the depth of how rich each of your individual experiences are has like worked into the inspiration of your filmmaking process. So really appreciate you both sharing that. I'd like to jump into my next question, which is centered a little bit more around collaboration. As we know, this year's festival is themed more around collaboration with different artists, interdisciplinary artists, excuse me. So I'd just like to hear how collaboration has impacted your filmmaking process, if it has. And whoever wants to jump in first is, of course, welcome to.
I guess for me, the collaborative process it was a benefit for us, and I feel like it's not a one-way situation. I think in anything, and I don't believe in true originality. I think we sort of absorb things from everywhere, and so I do feel like sometimes that collaborative process might seem kind of one way, because we're taking inspiration or someone's energy and trying to also add that to what you're doing. But I do think that for us, the collaborative process for me helped, because I really needed someone with some understanding of how communicating something so heavy can be put on in such a short piece like this. But yeah, when we were working with other folks in our team, the collaborative process was very, great. I think that we pulled a source from people from different backgrounds, cultures, different parts of the country, of course. But I do think that process is, I think I find it very hard for anyone hard to believe that it's just a one-way thing all the time. I think that it really strengthened our film. And yeah, I salute anyone who really wants to communicate something important to them. You're going to start with someone who's going to give you some feedback, and then you sort of start to navigate those questions that you need to answer. I think that sometimes we have there's a lot of steps to get to film, and I think that collaboration really helps you get there a little faster, honestly, because if you're alone, you don't have that motivation as much. So I think that it inspires a lot of motivation as well. So to just get the project going and keep it going. So I'm very grateful for that experience. Yeah. and that's why I love filmmaking as well. Comedy is the same way. It's just collaborate, and not to get offended by what you're doing. And I think that the character in the film is that way. Sometimes comedy to me is about making the uncomfortable comfortable. And so you have to sort of put people in a space that they just have to decide whether or not, it's comedy is subjective, but yeah, it is about making some things, bringing them out. And trauma is one of those things. So it's not something you talk about at work, or you have a panic attack. It's really intimate and personal. And so, yeah, I think that collaborative opportunities provide you that chance to really navigate through some heavy stuff, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with Jack. Collaboration is everything, especially in the filmmaking industry. I mean, in life itself, we're like myceliums. We cannot do, we can have ideas, but what do we do with these ideas? Like you get a team together and you trust also like the other participants to put their know-how. You just kind of like navigate through, but there's like all these currents. And making films in Colombia, you really need to like trust upon a collaborative environment, because most of these ideas, well, for any filmmaker, you have an idea and you start, like, how do I make it possible? And the budgeting part, always like to find the resources to make a film is very competitive in a place like Colombia, when like you have the whole country sending in the scripts to, like the one or two openings for film budgeting. So imagine just to get a group of talented people to connect with your idea and like pitching and working it just out of the passion, because you're all going, you get connected through the subject or to the storytelling or to the idea of bringing this art piece or this vision alive. It works in a wonderful way like that, because you're not only like paying people to do stuff, you're summoning people to work collectively, and you trust the other people to put in their their piece of talent and know-how. And in themes like this, like with the water theme and trying to build like altruist through the community, we also see beyond the film and like what the impact of the film is going to do, and how can we bring the community together. So like after each films, we try to do like a call out to other artists and see how they can put in their view of the solutions and the problematics, because we're always like thinking about the two things. Sometimes the film will point out at a problematic, but like, what are the solutions too? So we do a call out to the community. Like right now, speaking of collaborations, I'm in the United States because I'm like after the Mississippi River now, and I'm about the cultures and how to do a parallel of like what I found out in the Magdalena River, because they're like two very important potencies. Like what the Magdalena River is to Colombia is the Mississippi to the United States. So there's like all these cultures and everything. And I just kind of like jump here in a very brave and savage journey. And right now I'm getting all these collaborations with, right now I'm in a place called The Farm in Tennessee. Like of all the places I think I've been, this is like where it took me. And I'm finding there's the connection through the waters and people that are interested and saying like, hey, you got this going on. Let me help you. Let me show you. There's like this Biloxi tribe leader that had this thing, and they're pointing me to these directions. And sometimes it feels like a little leap of faith, but it's collaboration is connection, and without it, like we would be nothing. It's totally important, and you totally rely on it if you want to like have a good like reach out and make something.
Super, super cool to hear the different ways that collaboration has impacted both of your processes. So how do you hope that audiences will react to your film upon watching it?
I perceive some folks to find it a little bit on the dark side. And I think in Latino culture, we're always kind of viewed as sometimes either very hot-headed or, you know, soft-spoken in some ways. You know, I want to say humble more than anything. And I hope that folks will realize the range, because in our communities, when we see injustice or, you know, something is not right, you know, or how others are being treated, how resources are being allocated. And I mean, this goes for everything, whether it's your personal health or the, you know, personal, your mental health, your financials, and all those things that go with that, in order to get through this life. I do feel that the audience will, you know, like I said, it'll be a little dark, but yeah, I think that hopefully they'll receive it in a way to understand that we have a spectrum of, like, we like to party, you know, like I tell people, to understand Latinos, we have different, unlike the English language, we have various words to describe one thing. And I always refer to like a party, you know, when it's just 3 friends, a little gathering, it's a fiesta, you know. When it's like live music and we're having a good time, families there, also it's a pachanga. But then we have those parties where the police are called, and that's called a desmadre. So I feel like, I hope that people understand, can see, I think through my project, that at least some of us, you know, take our journey in a way that is maybe not traditional for a woman, you know, to be, or how a woman should behave. So I think that I like the character presenting that, and hopefully folks will find more strength in that, and then, you know, realize that, you know, we all deal with our situations differently, sometimes, and the way things happen are not planned, just as life. So I hope that folks do, you know, look at this project and see a little bit of themselves, the connection. I think, as you know, Catherine was saying, that, you know, we do really need connection, and that really, I mean, we're humans, and so I think that's why we do this. And so I look forward to it wherever it screens, of course, and that folks will receive it in a way that is, it speaks to them. But of course, like I said, it may not come off very comfortable. It's like a tough pill to swallow sometimes, to see someone unravel. And we didn't have a love story. I think I want to add something that I think is important about a lot of films that are out there. I sometimes feel frustrated that we feel like we have to form some kind of relationship of an intimate situation, whether that's like more of a love interest, or someone you want to date, or seeing two people on screen. It's a man and a woman. And so that means there must be a tension that is, that they want to be together in a relationship. And I think that this film kind of doesn't do any of that. You know, we don't come off to be as someone who, people who like, you know, romance and stuff. There's absolutely no romance in this film, even though there's a woman, and then there's you know, male characters in the film that, you know, some are very brief on the screen and some are longer. But I think that's something that I think is important, is that we sort of get to a space where we don't always have to make that connection, that there's that this person is unhappy because of necessarily a relationship issue. It's something that she's learning to love herself. And I think that that's what's, I hope, speaks to folks a lot.
Well, I believe that in this piece, what comes across a lot is like the level of resilience we as like Latinos, and even as human beings, or in this case as Colombian, or to put it in there like as Barranquilleros, have become to develop in like a life experience. Because since this documentary is based in the problematics in Colombia, but the story of Colombia repeats, like we've seen that same level of like violence, resilience, injustice, like all over South America, even in the United States, but the memory is a little bit farther away. Ours is still like very vibrant, right? And very recent. So I say resilience because you see these two characters. I mean, they're a couple. They're a couple that they're there because they find like a little haven there where nobody bothers them, where they can do their drugs, they can contemplate, they can have a space on their own, and yet living in this, this place that smells bad, that they're constantly threatened, that they have to like exert some kind of like violence to be respected in this place. The level of like humor that you find it is like amazing. Like just filming it, like the crew, we're always like laughing nonstop because it's this guy called El Mono, the main character. He's like a machine of jokes. Like if every situation he had a joke for it. And but his life is, like it's very harsh and it's very traumatic. He came from like an upbringing of like a high educated part of society, and he got into drugs and he found love with this other girl, and they became, like this couple. But then again, the situation in the Latino community, it's you tend to see like more what we call like the macho man, that he comes out to do the work and the girl stays. In them, it's reverse. She's the go-getter. She's always the one, like she's super hyperactive. She goes out to the street. Everybody respects her. She goes, recycles, do this and that. She's always in a hustle mode. And he's the one that stays on at home. He's like, okay, so you go get some yuca and some rice, and I'll come and cook for you. And he's like the humor one. So all this setting, like this reality where you find yourself in this harsh environment, and you find we were able to go into the home, and you're just like, how do they make this home in the middle of this like market where there's like a river of cars, a river of transportation, where it rains, everything gets flooded, and then you everything stinks, and you go through it, and people are making jokes, that this is like, we've already, like, our life is being like so painful enough that what are we going to do about it? Cry about it? No, we're going to do like the best we can. Yeah. So that's why you find like a lot of like community like within, because like nobody has the totality. So we rely on our neighbor to like complement what we need to get it done. Yeah. And that's how we make films too, And so yeah, so this has like a message of environmentally and water issues. It's also this was done also with a grant that I got from the city itself, that has the ministry, the Ministry of Tourism and Culture, is that the house is done. It's right there on a rescue fluvial aduana structure, and that river, that canyon, is right next to them. And I'm always thinking, like, how do they have this district operation going on when you have your water stinking right next to you? So I'm like, I wrote a proposal. I was surprised that I even won it, because it's like, so how can we make like this awareness to the people? Like, let's not normalize the stinky water. Like, let's remember that is wrong, that there's like fauna, flora that's trying to get back into it, and that it could be like something of pride, to have there. So for me, like, getting there was getting into a canoe, and normally people go out towards the big river and towards the sea. I'm like, let's go the other way and see what we find. And in the film, you see that, like, from the beginning, the first scene is the main character, El Mono, just like rowing through this boat through like this caño, and you see that there's all these structures of the market, everything is kind of like put on however it can hold. There's like these goleros, which are like this the birds of prey that they feed on like dead stuff. So it's like it has like a big impact. And then you see them like dreaming of like they want to see this like Venice one day, and they wonder if that's going to be like during their lifetime, or if it's just like a dream, but they don't stop dreaming. And the filmmaking of that movie conjoined it to a very special holiday in Colombia, in Barranquilla, called El Día de las Velitas. Which Dia de las Velitas is a day like where everybody put out the candles, and it's like an homage to the Virgin. And you just put the wishes and you put the candles. So this all confluented in that day. So after exposing all these problematics and seeing like all the hardship of the surroundings that they live in, it just gives like a moment of hope where they do these lights and they just like let it flow through the river. So it becomes all this poetic thing. And this is something that just happened. This wasn't planned. It just came out. And at the end, it's like, you know what, like there is hope. We can do this, people. So we're in this process. We're like in a bottleneck process of like becoming aware of what we have. Like we know we've been through so much violence, so much injustice. Colombia right now is like undergoing, you know, like so many changes in the politics, and this now the president mostly got elected because a lot of environmentalist group were like, say no to fracking. We're like done with like deforesting the Amazon. So that was kind of like a hope also. Because the new age, you know, the people are wanting to live back in harmony. So I think like it can speak of as resilience and also as hope, and understand that we're going through all this like rough moment, but we can work at it. Do not lose faith. And hopefully it's good. Hopefully this movie like will leave like a positive feeling, even though it's like very harsh from the beginning, you know. and it's led with a lot of like humor and this couple, like I said at the beginning, that they're these outcasts that nobody like would even like take a minute of them. Since I've come there, like, you can come here, but we only listen here to Pink Floyd and all this. Like you can tell like they're so knowledgeable about the theme. It's just opening, hearing, you know, the voices that are in there and rescuing and bringing what gives hope and what gives solutions. Like, because we're like up to here with the problems, so we're just viewing the problems to collaborate on opening up new solutions, because it's possible.
Kristen, I did want to add one more thing to my project, if that's still okay.
Yes, do it. That's totally fine.
Yeah, if I could, and I think this is something my cohort Via and I talked about a lot. She is of Puerto Rican background, and I am of Salvadoran background. And so I think that what we believed was also kind of important, and we hope the audience will connect with, is seeing someone on screen that speaks to those experiences that that our families bring, as others do, that we're first generation American, or in some cases second generation, but we still hold on to what's important in our culture. And I think our representation really hasn't been out there. And I myself, on my own, not through any particular project, am learning about the Puerto Rican experience. And I feel that our country has failed us with that. For instance, in understanding the history of the United States and Puerto Rico, the challenges that, or the political tension. So I think that I hope this film will also allow people to see that where the representation that's really critical right now. And I think the diversity of the Latino community includes people of African ancestry, indigenous ancestry. And so we find the connection with the struggles of a lot of people in the United States. And I think that sometimes we're a monolith, and I think this gets touched upon by a lot of folks out there doing good work to fight injustice. And I think that what we're trying to do in the short amount of time we get is to really get people to make that connection, that we are Americans, and we are very proud of that. At the same time, we want to exercise that right to speak out. And I think the character does that. And I hope that when people do see that, they see that, oh, you know, when I see something wrong in my place of work, I say something, you know, I take action. in the best way that I feel is safe, or really looking out for my community. So, and I think that Kache talked about that with the resilience of our community. And I hope that people do see the strength that despite the situation we're handed, that we show that resilience, because that's what our community is. And I think sometimes people may find a disconnect with like the fact that Latinos are from everywhere and make up every ethnicity, race is in there. And sometimes, as my husband, who's for instance from South America, he's from Argentina, there's this sometimes this hierarchy, I want to say, you jokingly refer to, as some folks would call Salvadorans, more like the jungle Latino, and then my husband's the refined Latino. But I think when we're here, we're really all the same. And I think that that's what I value. And I hope that that really speaks to the audience, that they see that I don't have an accent. And it's not even a regional, because from Texas, some folks do have an accent, some people don't. But I am Latina, very proud. And so I hope that people do make that connection. I think it's very important. So thank you for giving me the moment to share that. So
anything else too?
Yes, do it, please.
But just kind of like to thread like Jacqueline's thing is like, yeah, when we talk about we're Latinos, it's like, what does it mean for the imaginary of, like, for example, the US, where the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival is going on? Like, is it just like one big mass, or can you differentiate? But for us, it's like we're Latinos, but what are we really? Like, we're African, we're Indians, we're Spaniards, we're Northerns. Like, there's like all this confluence in us, and we're like trying to figure out how to, like to live and become and own this territory where we are, with like our histories and like our influences, because we do get, like, all South America gets a lot of influence from the United States, like growing up. I mean, I grew up with Friends and MTV and all that, so like we understand, we can relate very easily to the United States, but can the United States of North America can relate to us? So that's why, like, these kind of film festivals are so important to like reveal like what the culture, it's really about the multiplicity of this culture. So it's very interesting. Thank you for like opening this space, because it's very necessary, because the United States is to all these, they're Indians, they're Afros, they're Latinos, they're Asians, they're Russians. So it's very important to recognize what it's all about. And as a second thing, I wanted to see, like, for us filmmakers, it's always like very like important to get like a feedback of like what people have to say. I don't know if there's like any way that we can get that. Is there like a commentary thing underneath? I mean, I would be interested in it, just to know. Like, if there's connection, because like we're always working on the next project, so it's like, what's going to be next? So like, who's our future audience, all these kind of things.
Thank you both for like offering your words and thoughts. It's really an honor to be able to screen like your amazing work at our festival. So really grateful for you taking the time, but also allowing us to showcase your work with people in the Philadelphia community. I'd also like to thank our audiences back at home watching this Q&A. You're part of the group that makes this possible, and I'd like to encourage everybody that if you'd like to learn more about this current season or year-long events happening at PHLAFF, check out our website at phlaff.org. With that, thank you, audience, for watching, and thank you and goodbye.